Thanks for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast. If you like what you hear today, be sure to like it, follow it, share it with everyone you know. Be sure to give it a big fat review. You can also follow the show on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for regular updates on upcoming guests. Today we're brought to you by Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram at Chicopee. Be sure to stop by their state-of-the-art dealership next to BJ's and Big Y on Memorial Drive, or stop by MetroJeep.com and make it Metro. And then drive home in your new Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram today.
It's Baxie's Musical Podcast.
For whatever reason, the city of Boston, Massachusetts has always been a hotbed for American ska music. Ska, as some of you might know, is the musical genre which predates rocksteady and Jamaican reggae. It's a genre which actually shares its roots with American jazz, rhythm and blues, as well as the popular Caribbean music genre known as calypso, which started as far back as the 1950s. By the late 70s, English ska bands such as The Specials, Madness, The Beat, The Selector, and several others would briefly revive the genre thanks in part to Two-Tone Records. So it only makes sense that several years later, Boston would be ska's next stop. Starting in 1983, Boston would welcome bands like Bim Scala Bim, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Dub 7, and many others. By the 90s, you had other Boston ska favorites, the Alstonians, Skavoovie and the Epitones, Thumper, Beat Soup, and ushering in a wave of ska bands that hit nationally. Not just the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, but Operation Ivy, which eventually became Rancid, Sublime, Real Big Fish, and even No Doubt as well. By the second half of the decade, Boston ska seemed to have run its course, but not for everyone. In 1995, there was Big D and the Kids Table, a bunch of students from the Berklee School of Music who not only picked up where everybody else left off, they've continued a run that has lasted 31 years. With as many as 12 members of the band playing at any one given time, Big D and the Kids Table have released 21 albums, including their latest, The Good Old-Fashioned Saturday Night. The leader of the band has been the lead singer, songwriter, and the one-time drummer for the band, Dave McWane, who after 3 decades continues to have kept ska very much alive. As the band's longest-serving member with a relentless drive and fierce commitment to the DIY approach that has been their hallmark forever. The result of which is another incredibly sounding record with outstanding musicianship, great songwriting, and a bottomless supply of fun. For the last 10 years, Dave McWane has also been an instructor at Northeastern University's College of Arts, Media, and Design, teaching everything from entertainment law, artist management, songwriting, demo production, you name it, all while keeping his band together, playing live, and constantly recording new material. Big D and the Kids Table will be appearing at the Drake in Amherst on September 5th before heading out on tour in Mexico and in Canada. To talk about all of that is my guest today, Dave McWane from Big D and the Kids Table on Baxie's Musical Podcast. You know, anytime I get a chance to talk to someone from the state of Massachusetts, I jump at the chance. I'm like, well, okay, if we get nothing else accomplished here today, at least we have that together. So that's great.
Are you a Massachusetts person?
I'm in Springfield. I grew up South Shore, so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So,
Awesome.
And you're like right on the Mass-New Hampshire border or somewhere like North Shore, right?
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
I want to ask for your exact address. I'll leave you that piece of privacy to yourself.
It's funny. I just told my daughter that we call sprinkles Jimmy's today. That's a very Massachusetts thing.
It's a very Massachusetts thing. And I remember I went to college in the Midwest, and I remember trying to explain what a North Shore three-way was, and they thought, and it was a Catholic school, so I had to be very careful with how I described that, and it was not what they thought it was going to be. But congratulations on the new record. I know it came out on the 12th. It's been a couple of weeks still.
Yeah.
The Good Old American Saturday Night. Like everything else you guys have done, it always sounds amazing. And I see it's being described as one of your strongest albums in years. I tend to agree with that. Obviously, you're going to be biased, but what are your thoughts about the way the album came out and how it's being perceived in the early stages of the release?
Well, I think you're right. Like sometimes, most of the time, you finish a record and you love it and you love it and you love it, and then you put it out to the world. And, sometimes people say they love it, and sometimes, trolly people say something like, burp, 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 but this this time, everything's just been so positive, and everyone it just seemed like the right music, the right message, the right vibes, the right lyrics at the right time.
The musicianship in this record is just phenomenal. And I realize
Yeah.
that's kind of like a hallmark for you guys, in spite of people coming in and out, over the years. Tell me about that, how you continue to make that happen. I mean, it's for some bands, a trumpet player may leave, and it may take him 5 years to find a guy who's even close to the last guy that was there. How do you continue to find people to replace those who've come and gone?
Well, it's funny because, there was like the Strictly Rude crew, and then, we didn't know, but at the time, like, we just literally didn't know when some band members decided to get married. For some reason, we thought if you get married, you can't be in the band. You know what I mean? Like, we just didn't know that you could do that. We were just so young. So a couple guys who got married, said, I got to leave the band, but now they're just back. Like Paul Cutler and Ryan never left. So it's like in the horns, Paul and Ryan have been there the whole time. And it's funny for some of the other guys who are called the new guys, because I saw the Bosstones joking about this once. They've been in the band longer than some of the guys called the old guys. You know what I mean? So, but in all actuality, like, we all met at Berklee and in the Boston scene. So our circle of friends really is just our circle of friends. Like the crew on Strictly Rude or the crew on this record, we're still the same family. Boston's really small, so we're all just our two go-to friends.
It's funny that you mentioned the idea that if you're married, you have to stop doing
right
what you're having fun with. And I think anyone who's been married for a number of years will tell you, I would do anything to get back in that band. How can I get back? I need to get out of this house.
It's kind of like there's certain ages people really worry about, like turning 25 really spooks people out, and then turning 30. You know what I mean? And then it's until you wear the clothes that you're like, oh, it's just the same. Nothing has to.
Absolutely true. 31 years is a long time to be doing anything. Never mind, having a band. I mean, it doesn't really matter what the job is, but as the longest serving member of the band, how have you kept this all going? Is it part of the fact that, this is all like one big family of folks together, or is there something a little bit more complicated than that?
Well, I would say it's like this. So I've noticed, I call it like what Boston bands do. And Boston bands, I don't know if other states are like this, but I know Boston bands will do this thing where they spend all this hard time just writing a record, playing out, finally getting the record recorded, and then like playing out a little bit more and maybe expecting something. And if that something doesn't happen, then they kind of just fizzle out. They don't realize that like after the record's done, that's when the work starts, if you know what I mean, not when it ends. So Big D has been able to exist for so long. This is the main reason. We have no goal to be successful. We've never had a goal to be successful. Like, it was just guys who are addicted to playing music, wanting to play music with each other, definitely having limited parties they're being invited to. And so like, like Dungeons and Dragons kids, like we had the time to do the thing we like or love. And so because we're not trying to make it in a way, we're never failing. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've already succeeded way past our initial ideas. So we have no guilt to the band. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, you're also not setting yourself up for anything more than just you're having fun playing music. And really, and that's the reason why anyone gets into a band anyway, to have fun with their friends while they play music. Yeah. So if you can continue that, then good for you. That's a blessing. Most bands after like 4 or 5 years want to rip each other's faces off.
Yeah. Well, we're very different than like in our band. We encourage people to write songs who may not even want to, because we want to be like, we want to know what comes out of them, and we want to know how we can improve something different than we're used to. So yeah, I think it's been, and for all of us in the band, the fact that we've toured so much, we shouldn't be able to go to these different countries if it wasn't the band. Do you know what I mean? Like France, China, Southeast Asia, like we have the gratitude where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so it's like living your dream and not like looking at some checklist of things that aren't happening. I really do feel bad for bands that maybe look at numbers too much, like look at numbers and think other bands are competition. Like, there's enough seats on the bus for everybody. You know what I mean? It's so yeah, we're just happy to be around.
So the Boston area has always been somewhat of an interesting hotbed of, underground or alternative or, whatever the hell you want to call it. I mean, you can call it any number of different things, but it's always been a really fertile hotbed for ska in particular. And I remember, getting a series of records back in the 80s that were like, pitting, Boston and New York ska bands against each other.
Right.
And I always thought maybe I was biased. I always thought the Boston bands were just like a little bit better. Is there a reason for that? What do you think it is about ska that seems to kind of connect to the Boston area?
There definitely is a Boston ska, like everyone's gravitated to it. I mean, I think that Boston is kind of the most, it's not, nobody kill me, but it's one of the more Europeanish looking cities. You have the patina rooftops and stuff like that. A lot of architects came there first to build. So there definitely is a ska center. And of course, we have to say the Mighty Mighty Bosstones helped that. And when the Bosstones got big, finally, after 1 million records, the whole city was just saying things like, finally, good for them. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole city was happy for them. Do you know what I mean? They're like, our guys made it through. Yay. So I think they obviously had a big thing to do with it. But then there was like the Allstonians, and there was a lot of ska bands. I think Boston just has like a nice attitude, just like meaning we're small. We like to dance. We're not too worried about like how our look is coming off. Like in some other cities, maybe that's more important.
So what got you into it? I mean, obviously you're going to Berklee, you're being exposed to all different kinds of music and genres. Where did ska come into your life at that point?
Yeah, I was definitely a late comer as far as traditionalists that are like, you didn't know the specials until you were this age. So it's kind of like, yeah. So I started with Mr. Bungle,
oh, wow.
Which is a very weird way to take your first steps with ska. And so, I took off my first steps with Mr. Bungle. I'm like, wow, they have horns. I was really listening to a lot of heavy metal and hardcore. And so going to hardcore shows like Only Living Witness and Slapshot and Sam Black Church, sometimes this really funny band would open up, and they were the Mighty Mighty Bosstones. And so I was like, oh my God, these guys are weird, like Mr. Bungle. Look, they're all wearing plaid. They got the horns again. The horns are here again. And so those were my first two steps. And then my friend BJ one day just randomly gave me the Operation Ivy LP Energy. And so then I was like, okay, wait, so we're still doing the same thing, but they don't have horns. Okay, I didn't know this is all starting to get very interesting. Do you know what I mean? And then finally I would say, and then I realized who the specials were, meaning like with me and my friends, we would be listening to the Smiths or REM, and then the specials were already played, but I didn't really know that was them. Like I was a fan without even knowing the band name. And so then I started putting all the pieces together. But, I would say the biggest thing I do is I strictly listen to like traditional Trojan stuff. My wife and I just 24/7. So then when I found the traditional stuff, I was like, wow, it was really great.
Mr. Bungle's kind of an unusual entry point, though. I mean,
very much.
The three albums I love all three albums, especially the first and the last one. I mean, or the third one. But I wouldn't have necessarily. There's so much going on those three records. It's hard for me to say, oh, that's a ska band. No, right. It's everything. It's a mishmash of everything you could squeeze into a record.
Yeah, and then when I saw Fishbone, when I heard Party at Ground Zero for the first time, so now it's really handy because I'm like, wow, this singer guy, he's kind of like as crazy as Mike Patton. You know what I mean? Like, it's just funny to see a young kid trying to connect the wires.
Yeah.
And then slowly you see the whole world. But yeah, it's great.
So at Berklee, were you finding obviously you did because you started a band there. Were there a lot of like-minded people who were kind of seeing this at the same time you were, or because obviously at a place like Berklee, like I said, you're being exposed to a lot of different things, a lot of different talents, a lot of different music and genres. How difficult was it to find like-minded people to be playing, this kind of music?
Well, you're right that everyone's doing their own thing. And what's really cool about Boston and being really small is like we all go to the same like bars, like the Model, if you will, and Alston. And so, so you're standing there and you got Favorite Atomic Hero. They're your friends. And they're doing like this more like pop, like Jimmy Eat World stuff. And then you got Shadows Fall, who's doing like, I don't know how to describe their metal, but their hardcore metal style. And then, but we're all in the same like bars or at Berklee, so everyone's choosing their own paths, but everyone is still like immediate friends. Like, wow, you're gonna do ISIS, or like my friend who was in Kill Switch Engage, like, oh, you're gonna do that style of music, or Tony who was in the Distillers. Well, you're gonna do that. So I don't think like everybody was going towards ska. Everyone was just doing music.
Right.
But for our crew, I knew I wanted to work with horns because I really wanted like Rocket from the Crypt and the band Morphine. I just kind of thought like the next thing I do has to have horns. I got to see what it's like to have them in a band. And so my immediate friends at Berklee were like trumpet, trombone, sax. And then, so immediately we were all like, we're in a ska band. That way we can all hang out,
One of the things that I've heard from people who've gone to Berklee and even other schools too, is that a lot of musicians tend to kind of struggle to unlearn what they've learned from studying at the college level. I mean, not everybody feels that way, but there are some that almost have to unlearn the rules to make up their own.
Yeah.
Have you found that to be true, or like other people who have been in the band who kind of struggle with that transition?
This is how I would approach that. This is how I would approach that question. So when I started as drums, because that's my principal instrument, the singing thing is just the fluke. I played drums in Big D first, and then someone was like, why don't you sing? And I was like, okay. But, so this is all just ridiculous. But drums is my principal instrument. And when I was at Berklee, I did start to notice that every drummer was inspired by the same people, which is making them all play the same. So even if these drummers might be like technically better than you, everyone's the same player. So at one point I said, it's early. So like, you don't know Neil Peart is? Oh my God, you tell me you don't know who Neil Peart is. There's a lot of that at Berklee, right? So with my kind of Boston, Scottish, Irish, because you said that, now I'm not going to listen to him. Stubbornness, you know what I mean? I made it a conscious, if these drummers that everyone was inspired by was playing in the background, I would listen, but I would never study it because I didn't want to be like them.
Right.
And so I would study other drums like Ninja Tune DJs or DJ Crush and just try to figure non-drummers making beats because it's really interesting. So I would try to learn a different path. And then everybody started saying I was such a great original different drummer, and it's only because I wasn't eating the same things that they were devouring, and I took that to singing. So like with singing in Big D, I really try to I really love it when the young idea, the young, you're not an expert at it approach, because I think there's more heart, there's more like figuring it out and doing different ways. But yeah, I never want to get to be personally, I don't want to become too much of an expert at music, because every expert of music seems to have lost the magic of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I meet these people and I'm like, you've lost the magic. So I try to keep the magic in me.
Now, is that magic for you about having fun with it, or and not taking it as seriously? Or, I mean, what defines that magic for you?
Absolutely not taking it too seriously.
Yeah.
Like I even find it kind of a little tough sometimes when people gravitate to a certain language on tour. Like they'll start being like, copy that, affirmative. They'll start using like war terms, right? And I'll be like, guys, don't take it so seriously. You can just say, okay, man, sounds good. I'll check that out. And we don't have to use like, copy that, affirmative. Like I do think you got to make it, for me, you have to make it not too serious. Because there's nothing, for me, now I get nauseous off a lot of different artists. Like when, like when an artist answers the question, like he's the most, so she's the most important person that's ever answered the question ever. Like I can get a little nauseous. I'm like, dude, you wrote Jelly Roll. It's not a big deal. Like, when I need, so yeah. So for me, it's got to be playful. It's got to be discoveраtive. You have to discover things.
Right.
You have to have humility. You can't be like, I write all the songs, and having 3 choruses in a row is right, and you're wrong to think it should be 1. You know what I mean? Like nobody wants that. So just not taking it too seriously.
One of the things that has always been true of Big D and the Kids Table is this commitment to taking a DIY approach to what you do.
Yeah.
And which is not all that unusual, especially, for kids who are starting off with their first band. But as someone who's been at it for as long as you have,
yeah,
over 30 years, How has the process of a DIY approach changed in the last 30 years? And I'm not just talking like the technology
Yeah.
involved,
Right.
but there's a lot of other things that have morphed greatly in the
Right.
last 3 decades.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I definitely think there's this term that people use like on Saturday Night Live and things called with a Bostonian, like, you think you're better than me? You know, that thing. And it's weird that they're saying it as a question. You think you're better than me? Because that's not really the Boston term. It's you're not better than me.
Right.
It's a statement. It's not a question. And it became pretty clear to me at an early stage that everybody that was like, quote unquote, making it or pushing ahead in the industry was either from a connected family, rich, or, you know, fortunate in some way. Right. And so I knew I wanted to do music. Like, it was no choice. Like it was just going to happen. So I have to do the DIY stuff. So I just consider it fighting for my life. Like, you're not better than me to, you know, like to these other people. They just have the connections. And God damn it, if I'm not going to climb up there and look around too, you know, and we've been able to get to that certain level and look around. And I don't think the top is the best. I think you have like less freedom. It's less organic. You know, I always go to McDonald's. You know, McDonald's sells the most hamburgers, but I don't know if it's the best hamburger, you know.
Well, I mean, and there's also something to be said about the traditional way of doing it, you know, being surrounded by gatekeepers. And at least in the way you're doing it, the gatekeeper is you. And and whether it succeeds or fails, you know, that's something you can either take accountability for or say, well, okay, well, next time we learn. And I think that's really an important difference. A lot of people just assume, well, if I do this or I do this, I'll get discovered by this label or this guy. And it's like, you know, the amount of people that actually succeed that way is so fractionally small that the best way to do it is to take, you know, control of as much of what you can do as possible. And it's a great lesson for like a young musician or for, you know, anybody involved in a creative venture.
Absolutely. And I always think you don't want to find yourself in a Twilight Zone or, you know, the new show Black Mirror, but I'm more going Twilight Zone. Like, you don't want to make certain choices so that you have made it and you're in that band, but you don't really like any of the songs. And now you're on tour for a super long time. You're playing these songs and it wasn't really what you really wanted to do. And now you're in this terrible Twilight Zone where you got your wish, but it's not really fulfilled.
So one of the things I want to ask you about, because I'm fascinated by this, is like, as a guy who has fronted a band that has had as many as 12 members or more on stage at any one given time, to get all that organized and all of that together, whether it's, you know, rehearsal or in a studio or on the road, all the logistics and all the coordination and schedules that have to be considered, how difficult is that to manage? Because it would seem to me that could be very easy to collapse into total chaos unless there's some level of some structure around it. How do you manage your way through all of that?
That is 100% the hardest part. The hardest part is everybody's got lives, everyone's got schedules, and the scheduling of being in a band, have it be a tour or a rehearsal or shoot a music video or what have you, that is definitely the hardest part. But, you know, you just stick with it. Like, I just am always doing it, meaning I like Chris Rock said something like, when you have a job, the clock goes really slow, but when you have your career, the clock goes too fast. And you know, because you're loving it, and so I just keep on it. Like, for instance, we had one thing that we've been trying to schedule this one thing for like 2 or 3 months, but you just keep trying, and then there's this moment where it gets funny and ridiculous, and then people kind of like it becomes fun. Like, people start making it their mission too. Like, we can do this. But you know what I mean? Everybody knows. I mean, if anybody after college has tried to hang out with a group of friends, I mean, even just hanging out with 3 to 5 friends is hard enough. So I think, you know what I mean?
Well, at least during COVID, everyone was home, and you could probably say, well, let's do it all remotely and send files to each other. But once that's over, and now you're trying to accommodate everybody physically, I can't imagine how the challenge of all that. It's got to be amazing.
Yeah, and I have to throw out there, just for any of your listeners and stuff, like, it's with life being so hard, currently in America with like, I mean, it just seems like for everything you have to do, it's like, go, 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 go. I don't necessarily think the old model of every Thursday at 7:00 we practice, you know what I mean? Because if you're coming off a hard day's work, you would work, let's say you worked 8 hours and then you have some traffic and now you're starting rehearsal. They said at 7, but really everybody gets there around 8. And now you're going to do 2 hours and you have to work the next day. And how are you supposed to be positively creative? You know what I memean? So I really try to do daytime practices like on Sundays when it's like your first thing you do, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm just throwing out there to all the musicians out there. If you're doing those weekly rehearsals and everyone's getting tired and really you spend your time just trying to remember what you did last week, maybe change that. You know what I mean? Because you might get more out of a weekend practice than a whole month of night practice, unless that's your jam.
Right.
But it's a suggestion. Yeah.
Apart from the band, as I was, reading up on you, one of the things that I stumbled across is the fact that you've spent a number of years teaching.
Oh, yeah.
At Northeastern in the music industry program, but you've also taught at Northern Vermont and Bay State College. How did you get into that?
That's a great question. So Joe Gittleman has been more than just a producer for Big D and the Kids Table. He started teaching at Linden College now. It's got a new name, Northern Vermont University. And we were just chatting because, he produced Strictly Rude and Flute and Stroll. And he helped me get through the door in Vermont. And so I literally would drive 3 hours to work, get my teaching chops up,
right?
Teach at Northeastern, drive 3 hours back. And because that was the only place I could get through the door. And so I got my, teaching chops up, and then Bay State hired me, much easier commute, and worked there for a while, and then Northeastern. So I would say Joe got me through the door. You know what I mean? Like, and said, you can do it. And then Bay State was so supportive. They were like, can you teach entertainment law? And I was like, I never have. And they're like, you're doing it. And so then I had to like learn entertainment, like they do in the movies, like crash course it. And I taught it for 3 semesters. And then they're like, why don't you teach ethics? Now this is outside of the department. Now I'm going to a different department. And I'm like, ethics? Sure. But so everything's been just kind of wild.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but I put 110% into everything. So yeah, I mean, my course just ended just last Friday. So I'm on summer vacation.
Oh, good for you. Good.
Yeah.
Good timing on your part.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're teaching students who are primarily interested in the music industry. And the fact of the matter is, this is not the same music industry that existed when you were at Berklee. And I wonder, as the industry's experienced all these changes over the years, what are the biggest differences between the sort of students who are coming into a program like this, considering how different things are when you were, 18, 19 years old?
Okay. But I'm going to back up a little because for the first time, that course I said I just finished, for the first time ever, it's called the Festival Experience. Out of 20 students, only 2 were music industry people. Usually it's all music business majors,
right?
Always 100% of them. But this time it was only 2 out of 20. And it was called the Festival Experience. Now, how old are these students? They're, anywhere between 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, maybe. Now check this out. I said, okay, so let's go around the room and talk about the festivals we've been to. It's like and not one of them had ever been to a music festival.
Really?
Yeah. So think of their age, and they're at college. These students were the generation of lockdown when they were in high school, the no prom, no graduation. And so your question just reminded me when my mind got blown that all these young people hadn't been to a festival yet. You know what I mean? Like they should at least, taking should lightly, have 3 or 4 under their belt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting that we take a class in something like that they would have no real firsthand knowledge.
And that's why,
and
that's why they wanted to. And a lot of their talking to them, it was really interesting. They would go like, well, when I research festivals, it looks so fun. They talk about researching them and just like, like watching through the bushes, you know what I mean? Like, so it was pretty incredible. But as far as music industries, I could say like the basics. Like, of course, Big D started when we recorded on 2-inch tape, real tape, where you didn't see the music files, you only listened to the music. So there's obviously big changes with Pro Tools and Logic, but definitely more DJs. What easily said, there's way more women in the industry than when I went to Berklee. Like when I went to Berklee, there was probably like 2 women in the whole, class, or 2 or 3. And now, and I do credit it to a lot of the game show, like The Voice, American Idol, because those were open calls, and open calls are pretty neat, because there's so many gatekeepers, that I really am impressed of how many female artists and industry people. So that's definitely changed. Of course, there's a lot more tech. Maybe there's a lot more techno, like EDM. I'm sorry, but I don't know. It just seems like more people are like, I can do this, than your standard, long time ago kind of person. I don't know if I answered that.
No, you did. I mean, it's a different generation. They've had different experiences. And I was just curious about, how different are they from, where you were back in the late 80s or early 90s and all of that?
Okay, I will say this too. Sometimes when I have to teach marketing, or not have to, when I'm allowed to teach marketing, I mean, I definitely have great things to share. But it's really funny saying that to a young person these days, because they're born doing marketing. You know what I mean? Like right when they pick up their first phone, they're just marketing. Do you know what I mean? So I would say, and I don't mean this as a diss at all, because if you ask me the other way, I could put it down as well. Where I think at the beginning of my adventure, there was artists, and then there was like the industry and the man.
Right.
You know what I mean? But the artists were artists, the industry was the industry. But because of like Pro Tools and Logic and, social media marketing, different brain people can now enter the dojo of being an artist, not just these creatives anymore. Now it can be kind of the Excel spreadsheet type of brain person who's like, I can do this too. So I think different brain people are entering the arts. Because the technology caters to them a little bit more. And so you have different brain people doing it. And I think everyone isn't the man, but everyone is their internal artist and their internal record label within themselves.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, it kind of goes back to, the discussion we were having about the DIY stuff. It's like, back when you were first doing it, DIY was like one approach. Now the smart way of doing it is to do exactly that, because the more you are involved in different aspects of your music career, the better off you are ultimately. You don't have to rely on this guy or that guy, and you can save yourself a shitload of money at the same time doing it.
Yeah. And I think people should also, with everything being so global right now, definitely just try to, be a celebrated artist in your community. I think having a small, beautiful career is better. A long, small, beautiful career is better than maybe getting a short, bigger career.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I do want to talk about, some of the songs that are on the new record. You released a couple of singles early on. Scatterbrain is freaking awesome. The song Right Now is great. Nice. But there's a couple other songs that I really enjoyed. One, I love the way it starts off with Alston Storm. But the song that I really just freaking loved was, and you could probably guess, is probably Whiplash. I just thought that song was freaking awesome. And I know that's a song that, had been around for a while and almost made the last album. But I just thought this is, to me, that was like the gem of the whole record.
That's so great. Because it was one of the first songs. It was like you said, it was ready for Do Your Art, but we took it off because we do this thing, like if we're making a French cuisine, even if you make like a really great lasagna, that's Italian and it's great, but we're doing a French menu. So it was like the wrong menu.
Right.
But it's a perfect menu for this record. But yeah, I mean, that song has a lot of the energy, if you will. Like it's got some spastic arrangements, but it's still powerful and strong. It's got a clear message that's confident. And yeah, it's just ska punk right in the pocket.
It sounds so great. And even, it comes a little bit later on in the record. It's like, okay, it's a good good placement on that one too, because it just it breaks things up so beautifully.
Yeah, we kind of wanted like after the middle of the record to have a new surge of energy in the record.
Yeah.
If you can get to the middle, it's almost like it's not starting a new record, but it's starting a new energy.
The other song that and this is probably I don't know if this is one that people would necessarily point out, but for whatever reason, it earwormed on me and I kept playing it over and over again, was Rocker's Way. It's another
cool.
Yeah, I don't know why that one hit me. I still think some of the other songs are maybe a little bit better, but that one was like, oh, I got to listen to that one more time.
Well, with what Big D, I often suggest all the time, and I've been doing this suggesting this suggestion for a very long time, is songwriters can often accidentally or on purpose keep writing in the same grooves or tempos or feels each time, as a joke, a singer-songwriter usually writes in their bedroom this type of like this kind of tempo. It's this. So sometimes if you're in your bedroom, it's hard to write noise complaint, like you're just by yourself in a room and suddenly you're making like this huge party song, right?
Right.
So what I'm getting at is I always will be listening to music and hear a groove or a beat that Big D hasn't really played in yet. We have our different beats that we often, and I'll go, let's see what happens to us if we play in this groove. What comes out of us if we play this groove. So Rocker's Way, you can tell it's like a little slower.
Yep.
And so that was intentional. Like, let's first decide this beat and this tempo and this groove, and then we'll see what we come up with.
I mean, just the dynamics of the record, exactly what you're talking about, because it ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and it makes it more interesting to listen to. I thought, I really enjoyed it. Really cool.
I like that song quite a bit.
Yeah, it's great.
What's really funny is a lot of the lyrics, like a sad soul can kill you quicker than any germ, right? Like I wrote that line before COVID, but it seems like I'm talking about COVID. Well, I guess there's been a couple like clairvoyant things that accidentally happened.
Well, you hit that one pretty good, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You guys are actually coming to our area, coming to the Drake in Amherst in September. Most people from the Boston area don't come out to Western Mass until either get accepted to UMass or they're in a band. Those are the only two reasons most people come out to Western Mass. But
that's pretty funny. That's pretty true. Yeah,
it's true though.
Yeah. I think it is true.
Absolutely true. But tell me about the tour. What you guys are doing.
So instead of doing, I think not many bands do this anymore, but back in the day, you do like 2.5 months and just do the whole U.S. You know what I mean? I think bands are doing more like drop-ins, like an oval of 10 days from like Montreal to Florida or Montreal to Toronto, Detroit, or like just different ovals, and then you can fly to California and do an oval. So we're going to do that. We're going to do the US in different pockets, little jumps. Then we're going to do the UK, maybe a little Europe, and we're scheduling China, Japan, and some Southeast Asia. So everything's getting booked.
That's great.
We're putting the train back on the tracks.
Now, does this interrupt your teaching schedule at all, or that you're working around that?
Well, I sometimes see where things are going to land. You know what I mean? So I did say yes to some tours without knowing quite yet, what Northeastern has planned for me. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I think everybody would agree that you'd want your professor going out and having adventures and coming back, rather than he doesn't go on any adventures anymore.
Well, that's true. That's why they have sabbaticals.
Right. And I shouldn't say this because it's too awesome, but I'm a big Indiana Jones guy. I love Indiana Jones. And Indiana Jones, he goes out, does his adventures, and then comes back and teaches. That's what each movie kind of happens. So I'm basically like the rock and roll Indiana Jones.
I could totally see that. Totally see that. Dave, this has been a lot of fun. Like I said, I really enjoyed the record, and it's great to have you on the podcast. Great to see you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I love the great questions. It's great hanging.
Thank you, man. Best of luck. Maybe we'll do it again sometime. I hope so.
Absolutely. I'll meet you in Western Mass.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thanks,
Cheers.
Dave. Take care now.
Thanks.
The name of the new album from Big D and the Kids Table is called The Good Old Fashioned Saturday Night. They'll also be coming to the Drake in Amherst, Massachusetts on September 5th. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can email me at bax@rock102.com. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks to Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram at Chicopee for their support, but most of all, thanks to you for for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast.